Gideon, thanks so much for coming aboard here. I personally, I really look forward to hearing about your stories. I mean, I've been sort of hearing about it in bits and pieces every now and then, but I don't think I've ever actually sort of known the full extent of everything that you've accomplished. Because it's quite insane, actually. So and I remember, so everything started around the 2010 when you decided to come to Perth. Would you mind just letting me and letting everybody else know what made you sort of just pack up and leave? Because that's essentially what you did. Is that right?
Yeah. I literally left and I said goodbye. I was not looking to travel. I was looking to try something new and live differently. That's how I saw everything. And I actually didn't, when I told my parents goodbye, I actually meant it. I didn't expect to come back, which was a bit crazy to look back on, but I sort of, it's a mix between running away, I guess, and sort of just, trying something else. And it actually started like the whole year before. I had a shift in my life, and I started, when we were working together, and I was at a seminar, and things sort of changed in the sense that I wanted to read books more, study myself, discover, who the heck I am, and ask questions about society and whatnot. And it led to sort of wanting to just question my life, my existence, because it was not very fun, to be honest. Like 8-to-4 job, it was just mundane, So during that year, I just sort of wanting to live differently. And when you got fired from the job, because we had a good connection, and I think from that point on, I was sort of really questioning, because you were already thinking about Australia and so on, and we were talking about how to live differently, actually, I think, and it made me just really think about what I was doing. And that seminar, I got certified with that guy that I saw speak in February of that year, 2009. And the last 3 months of that year, I started an investment, and I lost $20,000 in 2 days at the end of that year. And it made me just sort of like, I don't give a shit about anything anymore. So I already quit my job in October without knowing what to do. And when that happened, I was like, on the 2nd of January, in that morning, I told my parents I'm leaving.
Just like that.
And so I was just sort of done. Like, it seemed like I'd been in a circle for a few years, that I kept coming back to the same thing, that nothing was working. Like, I often found myself in depression during the winter in Denmark and many things. And it was like, now I lost a bunch of money. I don't like my job. I don't like where I live. Yeah, I might as well just get the hell out of here.
Yeah, right.
And then obviously we talked, because you left in September, I think. Yep. 9/11, right?
2009, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Just remember that date.
That's right.
And so I don't know. It seemed to make sense in terms of having a working holiday visa and so on. So it made it easy that Australia offered that. So, and then you were there, and I was like, yeah, why not start in Perth, Australia? So.
To answer the reason you left, I'm honored. No, but honestly, so you just wanted to leave what? What were you trying to leave?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's first within the last year I actually realized why I left. And of course, everything you do is a symptom of something that is underneath. That's a foundation for something, or where you come from. And my parents come from very religious families, and I have realized over the last months that the last year here being home, that that I was in a religious sort of place when I was in my family early on, and I was in a very normal school over here. And when I look back, it's like I didn't know where I belonged at all. So I was I was constantly back and forth between these two different worlds, which made me confused, I think, on a fundamental level. So I think I didn't really like living in an apartment by myself. I didn't like school. I didn't like the social norms really in many respects. So it just, now I'm concluding and calming down more after 10 years that, I've been out traveling to actually find the reason why I left in the first place, which was, of course, leaving and sort of escaping what I didn't maybe want to face, but also trying to just find myself. I mean, really discovering who am I? What am I? What is this life about? So, so I think I've got a perfect start. Coming to Australia, I think it was one of the best places I could have gone. It was really good to have you there. I think just because you'd done the same 4 months before, with a lot less on your back. What was it? 2 pairs of socks and whatever.
Yeah. That's a story for another day. But I left very minimalistic, if you like. Yeah. But look, awesome. Yeah, look, do you want to start from like when you arrived to Australia and maybe try and elaborate a little bit more on why that was really good?
So I arrived February 17th, and we spent a couple of days together or something, I think, early on, and then I just started to. I mean, my goal initially was to stay there for at least 2 years, because you could have. If you went to a rural area to work or whatever, you could get an extension of a year. So my goal was to, as quickly as possible, find a farm or something where I could just help out and be. And you had already been at this farm, Myra Valley, for a party or something, I think, with Matt Porter. And couch surfing, obviously, as you find out, was a really good way to connect with people and network and so on. So I connected with Matt and came up to this farm for a couple of weekends. And on the second weekend, I was like, can I just stay? Because it seemed like a perfect place for me, because I literally left, not looking back, but I left also with wanting to find some solitude, I guess, or something in nature. I always liked nature and so on. So what I discovered at that farm was that I could get that there. I could help out and just work for free or whatever and get accommodation and just have a place where I could just enjoy myself for a while. So, and very early on, I think it was 6 weeks, must have been about 6 weeks after I arrived, I went up there and stayed for 4 months, and it became lifelong friends with Matt and his family. So, and we had parties every weekend and worked like crazy during the week with creating a veggie garden and feeding chickens and whatnot. So,
maybe can you try and describe like your everyday life living, because you literally, like, you were in the middle of a big forest, really. Completely like a very, very bad phone reception, if any at all. Is that right? Or
yeah, it was not good. I mean, you could, if you knew the spots where to stand, you could call, or you could. I mean, texting was okay. But it was sort of a hilly place with a lot of trees and kangaroos and whatnot. So it was not ideal to be alone there, because if there was a snake or if you got injured or something, you were fucked pretty much. So so they were kind of worried about that initially, or at least thinking about that. So, but yeah, the early every day was, we had a plan for how the shed was going to look, or the veggie garden or whatever. And I woke up, made some breakfast, took the little truck down to the main area, and either I watered plants or I just started with a shovel. It was not looking very good, so I just cleaned it up with a shovel and did that for 2 to 3 or 4 hours, and then went up to have some lunch, and then went back down, and then I watered for a couple of hours in the evening. So it was working all day, and I was pretty much by myself all the time. I loved it. It was such a beautiful way to start traveling. It was perfect.
So when you say traveling, like really you were in the same place, but you obviously were doing something completely different to what you were doing in Denmark. So how did that make you feel? Like, did that make you find any sort of relief or any peace or?
I think I really enjoyed it in a way that I felt it was just special, and I felt it was natural to me to be in that kind of a place. And I think I knew that I was not going to be there forever, even though that Matt and me, we talked about, maybe developing the place to, have retreats or have events or whatever. But it seemed like after 4 months that, I was going to try something else. And I don't think I was so early in my traveling that I didn't really realize what I was doing to myself yet, I think. So that it was sort of what you could call it was just early part of the traveling experience. I had not gotten underneath myself yet. So, so after the 4 months, I went up north to Broome in Australia as well. And I actually went up there with pretty much no money, and was fortunate to find a job fast in a bar complex through Matt, one of Matt's friends. You went up there and visited me as well. And I was working at this place, the Rowie, where everybody got drunk every day. So
that's Australia for you.
Yeah.
Especially these days.
Yeah. But I was, they had Cable Beach, which was this huge, like long beach. I don't know how many kilometers. I don't think maybe 80 kilometers or something. Very long beach, very flat and awesome. So, but very different up there because it was very touristy, I guess, or a bit more low key. But that was actually the place where I got into a routine of working normally, and I started to sort of. So I got up there that was from March to June, and then I went up there from like July, and then to about November. And in October, I realized I needed to go back out in the world to connect with people who are within the personal and spiritual development, because that was where everything sort of kicked in 2009, before I started the year before traveling. So when I realized that in October, I just wanted to keep working, save up as much as I could, and then go traveling. And my goal was to just make that environment a part of my life. And the way I wanted to do that was to go to workshops and events and so on. So I went back to Perth in November, and then I worked for a couple months in a factory, metal factory. And with your help, or with your wife's help, I got to the airport in January back then, and I went off to. I had made a really stupid mistake, which was I had ordered 2 working holiday visas at the same time, one for Australia and one for Canada. So if I had to unlock the visa for Canada, I had to go there by the January 12th, I think. So I took the flight on January 11th, and with the help of the time zone or time difference, I could make it before the before the 12th.
That's cool.
Before the 12th of January, so I could actually go in and then unlock that whole year if I wanted to take that on in Canada as well. So I went to London. That was crazy. Like, for a full day, I went from Australia to London, then London to Canada, and I was there for a week. And then I went down to Ohio, where I was an exchange student when I was 17, 18 in Vermilion, Ohio, which was this little town by the water. And I went there. My goal was to go to Costa Rica. That was the main goal, actually. So I went all across the world, like literally, to go to this workshop of an author called Dan Millman, who has written this very powerful book called Way of the Peaceful Warrior. So I wanted to go to his workshop for a week in Costa Rica. So that was a bit crazy. That was like 3 weeks of traveling from across the globe. So,
but so after spending 1 year in Australia, that obviously wasn't enough then, because you kept traveling.
Yeah.
Like, what was any of that of the first period of time? Did any of that sort of make you change in your mindset, or is there anything that sort of made you forget of what you were traveling or trying to leave from when you left Denmark?
No, at that time, I think that I had started getting used to traveling, or that I could live that way. So
the backpacker lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think Australia sort of set me up for that. And because my goal was to establish myself in that environment of personal spiritual development, I then just focused on doing that. So after Costa Rica, I went back home for some weeks, back to Denmark. It's kind of crazy. Like, for a month and a half, I went from Australia all across the globe, and then sort of halfway back in less than a month.
What about you? What about your Canadian visa? Didn't you? When you gonna work in Canada?
So that was my intention. So I went back to Denmark for some weeks, and then I went back to another workshop in California, and then my goal was to go to Canada. And actually, I got hooked up with a place on Vancouver Island, which apparently is one of the most beautiful places in Canada. And I could have gone to a place like a farm area, but for some reason I continued to. I guess I had sort of a desire to go to this conference in Chicago, which was a 4-day conference, and I started this idea of a Your Unique Journey project. So the project that I called Your Unique Journey, which I wanted to talk to people about their life and stories, and I wanted to do these things. And I thought that the way I could get this going was to connect with as many people as possible within this environment. So I think it was kind of difficult because I wanted to do the other part, but I guess it just drew me in that direction of wanting to connect with people. So instead of going to Canada or staying there, because I did go to Vancouver actually, after California, I just continued to go to conferences, and I went to Colorado and to friends in Houston, and conference in Chicago. So yeah, I kept just going to conferences and mingling with
what sort of conferences?
Yeah, so it was a lot of the people that I actually talked to, or had read books about. So within the spiritual development and that whole environment, they all read or write books, So it was basically talking about different perspectives on life. I think mostly they all had different perspectives, different ways of, either it's metaphysical, or either it's sort of more, maybe it could be shaman stuff, or it could be many different things. And the one in Costa Rica with Dan Millman was kind of an adventure experience, because you both did lectures with him, but you also did trips together with a group. So it was all kinds of stuff. But I think it was just the energy that in that place. I began to understand that I belonged there, because it was like-minded people, people wanted more out of life. Understanding life better and becoming more self-aware through meditation, through writing, or asking questions. So many things.
So in some ways you could say that maybe that was to me it sounds a little bit like a cult, or sort of the same as you would have if you were a believer or had some sort of religion. Is this because when you're all saying you're all like-minded, you're in the same community and stuff, is that how does that community work? Is that?
It's interesting, because I have obviously went through the whole shebang of all that stuff, and I come from a very rigid religious background. So I have sort of concluded that a lot of people, especially during that time, I think, and maybe still, I think we all have some kind of void inside. I think we all live in a society that to some degree is not very healthy. If we look at regular schools, we learn very logical things like math and like left brain stuff, math and languages and so on. And we don't really get used to working with our right brain, with the creative side of ourselves. And I think that makes us not really, feel ourselves. We're not really in environments where we can really feel what makes us tick. So I think when we grow older and that when that has not been practiced, we look for something to fill the void. And we either look for in religion, or we look kind of codependent. We look to see if we can find something that can sort of fill that hole up. And a lot of people they look for things outside of themselves, and that's the whole issue with anything, is that there is nothing outside of yourself that can complete you. You already have it inside, and that's the whole practice and understanding of everything. And until you realize that, you will continue to look outside of yourself and look for a teacher that can tell you what the answer is. And interesting little side note to that is that when I was in Costa Rica, we were 42 or 3 people there, and there was a son and a mother there from Romania or something. And because the whole week was called, some kind of a transformational vacation. That was sort of the sub-headline, which right. For a lot of us was, because it was a very exciting time. You mingled with a lot of great people, and you had, you saw Costa Rica, you were river rafting and whatnot, and it was just phenomenal. But I remember just standing in front of them and said, we don't feel transformed. Is what they were saying. And it's like, yeah. And it's interesting because I think that's the thought a lot of people they walk around with. I mean, I work for 2 people now in California who is in this space, and one of them, Derek Rydell, I really love him because he comes from a really truthful place. And you see a lot of this in this environment, that people are looking for the answer from someone else than themselves, and that's actually what he's teaching, to have people learn how to do that. So yeah, it definitely can be a kind of I don't want to say cult-like, but it can definitely be a kind of a codependent way of living, because no one else but you have the answer. So yeah, I also learned that sort of the shadow side of that whole business or industry, I guess you can say.
So I'm assuming that industry, does that involve is there any financial commitment, or is it more on a spiritual community level, or how is it structured?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody who has either has a concept or has some kind of niche that they want to focus on. It could be anything from wanting somebody to, helping people get more clients if they're a therapist, or if they're a physical therapist, or if they are a coach, or anything that is sort of self-employed, or in a real estate or something that's more business coaching, I guess. And then there are people who teach. It could be relationships, or it could be self-love, or it can be how to write better. I mean, there's many platforms, and most of them, they have a structure where it's either courses online, or it's products in the form of books or programs, physical programs. If they don't get CDs anymore, but get a workbook or whatever it is, and of course seminars, they have a cost and so on. So it's all, if you do it for the right reasons, and you know why you're doing it for those reasons, I think it can always be good it's always good to help yourself, or to grow and to become better. I mean, I think studying is really important. It will never end. But you have to be aware of yourself, about why you're doing it, because we can really very easily get caught in our ego, and as anything else, we want things fast, and we want this from out there, and and yeah, it just doesn't work if you're doing it for those reasons. So so yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, they do it in a really healthy and a really good intentional way, and I also think that there's people have a responsibility for not putting people up on a pedestal, So if somebody has written a book or have anything, if somebody is a teacher, as a student, you can't put them up on a pedestal. Maybe they know more than you. Maybe they have more experience than you, but you can't put them on a pedestal, because if you do that, then you limit yourself, or you want them to have the answer for you, and that's the main issue, I think.
So did you find any answers?
That's a good question.
Because this is obviously still very, very early on, and this is back in 2012, 13-ish.
Yeah, I think what I liked the most was the network of people, and just being able to communicate with people who actually was thinking they wanted more out of life, and it didn't really matter what it was, but it was just so easy to talk to. And I think that's why we connected well, because we also are like-minded. And my perspective is that we always think about ideas. And I remember you were talking about being a cyber vagabond back in the day, and wanted to do that. It was interesting because that was actually my whole intention throughout my adult life, was to be able to work from my computer. Now, the last year, I've finally been able to do that, and now I stopped traveling.
Oh, well, sounds like you found your calling then. You reached the final destination.
Yeah. No, I think there's no final answer, and we always change, we always change and grow and whatnot. So that's it. It's always a journey, So there's no end to anything.
So tell me what happened after. So obviously this is back in 2012, 13-ish.
So I was. I was mostly in North America during that time. I had started a relationship with a woman in Chicago, which was a horrible experience, to be honest. It was probably the worst, but I think it made me sort of gain an opportunity to gain great experience throughout for the many years to come, and that's obviously what I've realized now. So, but what's interesting was that we were in the movies once, where we watched this movie, The Way, about the Camino in Spain, this long pilgrimage across Spain, and that was sort of the first seed. I remember I really wanted to watch that movie. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful movie. And in the summer of 2013, I was with a group from the Costa Rica group in just west of Boston, and we were in a house and whatnot. And one of there was a girl there who was part of connected to a family who had the house we lived in, and she mentioned that she wanted to walk the Camino. So I was like, okay, that's interesting, because I pay attention to those things. When people begin to talk about things that you want to do or you have an interest in, and maybe that's a sign from the universe that maybe you should do that. So I went back home, and I've spent actually 7 or 8 months at home in Denmark. And I remember going to I used to play basketball when I was 10 to 20. And my former basketball coach, he actually lives very close to where I am right now. And I went down to him because I wanted to start reading some books because I needed to be distracted or something. And he had this book by Paulo Coelho called The Pilgrimage. And I was like, yeah, that's down my alley. Because I love this idea of traveling and a journey and whatnot. So, but of course that book was all about the Camino. So I was like, when I got into that book, I I need to do it now. That was the last sign. So I got a very shitty job at a factory for a few months. I was putting ice, like what do you call those icicles? The soda pops or the ice cream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not an ice cream, but like a kind of a lollipop ice cream. Yeah, popsicles. Yeah, boxes of those into other boxes for 3 months. They had to be repackaged or something stupid. So I did that to save up enough to go on this pilgrimage, and so that I started to do. I went down to Spain in early April, and I love networking, so I needed to find a place where I could put my big backpack, because I was traveling with a 60-liter backpack or whatever, and I didn't want to carry that around across Spain. So I had been in Mexico. We neglected to go into that, but in 2012, and I met a really nice couple there who. The guy was from London, or from England, and his mother lived in Malaga in Spain. And I thought, yeah, I can go down there, stay with her for a little while, and have my big backpack in storage, and then I can just go up north to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, which is the little small French town where most people start. So I did that, and on the 8th of April, I started to trek across Spain, which, in short, is just one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life. I think a lot of people, they can either think about walking. I mean, because when I'm right here, and if I had to walk to Odense, where we're from, that's like 30 some kilometers, or 40 maybe. That would take like an entire day, and it's like, why would you ever do that? You know, or 10 kilometers even. It's like, it doesn't really, it takes so long. But the Camino has been walked for probably 1,300 years, and by millions of people. And the history of that place is just so amazing. And yeah. It's it's a long story.
so is this something you decided to do for the history of, because apparently, like, it is, am I right in saying it does have some religious background to it? Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So it's called the Way of Saint James, and Saint James apparently was one of the apostles of Jesus. So his remains, or his body, was found or whatever, and was put in this cathedral, in Santiago, in the northwest of Spain. So in Galicia. So it doesn't really feel like it's Spain, because back in the day, it's called Galicia. It comes from Gaelic, and that's from, I think, what is Scottish. So that area sort of, has a bit of many cultures. But yeah, I think a lot of what I realized after the walking that was that a lot of people, they go down there with a motivation. They know they have a motivation for walking it, but they don't know why. They don't know why yet, right. Because a lot of people, they go down there for so many reasons, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things about that particular trek, is that people, they may have lost their job. They may have lost a bunch of money in business, or they may have lost a parent or a partner or a kid. You don't really know. But a lot of people, they come down there and they just say, I don't want to give up life. It's so hard. If something is so hard, but you want to keep on going, many people go down there to just simply have this as a bridge from something in the past to something new. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I discovered down there, is that I walked with a guy from Germany at one point, and he and his wife wanted to walk it together, but she died. She died before by cancer or something, before they had the chance to. So he walked it for her, And right. There's so many stories where I think it was a guy who walked back and forth. He walked that one way and he walked back, and I think he was from one of the Eastern Bloc countries, and I don't remember the entire story, but it was one of those people that just has lost everything. He had lost everything, and he didn't want to give up life. I mean, he just wanted to find another way, walking the way. So, right.
That's a beautiful reason and beautiful story as well. I'm just curious to find out, like, how far exactly is that, and how long does it take? Because I'm assuming here, for someone to, as you said, just to walk it and walk back, like it's not like you're going to the grocery store and back.
No.
Like how what's the distance here?
Yeah, so the entire from Sangshan Pit to Port. I mean, you can walk from anywhere in Europe, really. I mean, there's treks from many different places, but the place that most people start is from Saint-Jean Pied de Port, which is this very, very little French town. And then it's 800 kilometers to Santiago. And then if you want to continue on to the coast, it's another 110 or 20 kilometers. And then you walk between 10 and 30, maybe 40 kilometers a day. And then it all depends on how much time you have. Because some people, they have like, I have 25 days, and then you can quickly calculate that it's 40 kilometers per day. There was one point where there was this older guy, I think he must have been like 50 or something. He had 25 days or something, he said, or around there, or maybe less. And he had to walk like 40 kilometers a day. But I had enough time. I didn't have any, my goal was to stay in Spain after. So I walked between 10 and 40 every day. But the trip itself is just, the metaphor for that place is pretty amazing, because first of all, you connect with people so fast, because the first two questions are, who are you, or like, where are you from, and why are you here? That's the first two questions. Then you're on the conversations that are quite deep, because then you go into these stories where, either it's just vacation, that's fine, and maybe it's for religious or spiritual causes, or maybe it's something more significant with having lost something or wanting to finding a new way in life or something. For me, I had not closed the gap from that sucky relationship that I had, and I wanted I wanted to walk it because it was what I had read about it, and seen, but I wanted to see it as a bridge between, I wanted to leave that other stuff behind now, and that have this pilgrimage as a way of going towards something new in my life. So,
But so how does the logistics work? Because you just said you walk, between 10 and 30 kilometers per day or something. Like, where do you sleep, and where do you eat? Like, how does it work? You were talking about, like who are you? Where are you from? So, like, do you walk together, or do you walk at your own pace, but you catch up with different people, or how does it work?
Yeah. So obviously, this particular trek, the French Way, as it's called, that's the most walked trek probably in the world, I think, at this point, must be. And that means that a lot of people are walking. But if you walk in the spring, as I did, or in the fall, there's less people. But yes, you catch up with people very fast, and you talk to people. And then, because you're walking, a lot of the people that you see, you will sort of follow throughout, and you will see at the same places where you sleep, because even though there's many different places to sleep, there is a lot of it's the same pace, kind of. So you will see a lot of the same people all the time. But for me, I started out in a group of 6 to 8 people. And I actually continued throughout the trip walking with this French guy who was recording everything, which was a really funny experience, because he wanted to make a movie out of it. And I became sort of his actor while we were walking, which was a lot of fun. And it was funny because there was a funny story where we had this in Pamplona, which is that's the place where people are running with the bulls. It's kind of a castle town. Yeah. Yep. So we met each other there, and we were together until the end, which was really good for us both, I think. And then you sleep at these albergues, small pilgrimage hostels, and then you have this pilgrim passport. I don't have it to show. Maybe there's a picture.
I've been running some photos that you sent through. So I've got is that the big one where you're sort of holding this big map almost? Yeah. It's got like a shitload of stamps on it.
Yeah.
Good.
Everywhere you sleep, you get a stamp, and you actually are not allowed to sleep in these places if you are not a pilgrim or don't have this passport. So it's kind of a way to just prove that you did it for yourself, but also at the end you get a diploma, which is, who cares? But it's sort of a diploma that you did this and whatnot. So you have to show that you did it too.
Do you have to pay? So do you have to pay when you sleep in those?
But it's very cheap. It's like $6, €6, €5 or €6 per night, and then Yeah, and then during the day, I mean, you walk. Obviously, people wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, so you can sleep from like 2 or 4 in a room, bunk beds, or 6 or 8, or you can sleep in a. We had this. There was one time there was this. It was like a big church or like church room, and I think we were like 100 people in there, just bunk beds all over the place.
Dude, that sounds nuts, man. Louis, it sounds very like you obviously get very close and personal with people, and you're walking for and most people, I'm assuming, would be walking this for about a month, or 4 weeks or something. Yeah,
at least 25 to 40 days.
That's a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm assuming here it will probably be mostly like fit or young or middle-aged people. Or did you meet a lot of older people, or is it like how does that work?
It's all ranges. And to put that in perspective, a couple of days before we finished, there was a family that had passed by that place where we were that night, and it was a family from Germany, and they had walked all the way from Germany, a family of 5, and 2 of the kids could walk. So that means that a couple of parents had to carry at least one, so there are so many of these stories. And we actually walked with a man and his son, and the son was pretty much blind. He had, I don't know what you call it, but he could only see just a little bit out of one of the eyes, and he could walk by himself if it was during the day when the sun was out. But otherwise, he had to have his father near him to get directions or to follow him. So yeah, there's so many beautiful stories and people there that and then I think when the whole idea of the metaphor also is that you connect with people fast, and you have to say goodbye to people too. So it's a constant reminder of that everything changes all the time in our life, and you really have to appreciate the people you are with, because you can connect with people you connect with people really fast, and you can you might not see them again. So it's a really good reminder of many things, and to just really enjoy things. And I think that's, if anybody's asked me what would be the perfect or the best thing you could do traveling wise, is to walk through a country, and maybe the Camino, because it goes slow. You can enjoy yourself, you can enjoy nature, you can enjoy the people you're around. Everything is in a pace where you're not in a hurry. At least, and I think if you are in a hurry, or if you are in sort of a trying to get to somewhere, I think it teaches you to slow down during the length of this pilgrimage, and I don't know if we have time, but I learned the 3 phases of the Camino, which I guess you can also call the 3 phases of life, which in very short is, the first phase is the very physical phase. It's the superficial phase, in the sense where it's before you go into the depth of something. So it could also be related to if you start to learn an instrument or something, where in the beginning it can sound like you both find it hard, but you're also excited, so it doesn't matter if it's hard. But then after the physical phase and the excitement and that superficial phase is sort of faded away a bit, you go down into the mental phase, which is where you really learn. And that can be a really long struggle. And on the pilgrimage, it's like, I don't know if you've done yoga, but in the end of yoga, you're doing this shavasana, which is you're laying down and you're just trying to not think about anything, which is very difficult.
I can't do that.
But in the middle of the Camino, it's all flat land. So it's all fields and it's all green and so on. So you're not distracted anymore as much, because in the beginning it was very beautiful and there are mountains and whatnot. So you're forced to just be with yourself, forced to be in your mind and so on, just like a meditation. And in the end, or the third phase, the second phase is the mental phase, I should say. So that's the middle phase. And then the third phase is the spiritual phase, of the phase where you're, it's just more connected to yourself or people or the nature and so on. And what was so interesting about the journey is that the landscape was sort of in the same, it was sort of how those 3 phases were. So that it sort of made sense, but it also made sense in the terms of how people were. because the group that we were 8 to 10 people. I had a connection with a woman there, and the French guy also had a connection with a woman there. And then all of a sudden they wanted to walk by themselves, and everybody wanted to walk by themselves in that sort of middle phase there. So it seemed that all of a sudden that everything sort of made sense after, and I've thought about that a lot, that everything seemed to just make sense or sort of connect, and that the landscape sort of had its place, and the faces had its place, and how the people acted had its place. So yeah, kind of interesting.
But so not only have you done this once,
yeah,
you got back the next year.
Yeah, so I stayed in Spain.
That's right.
My goal was to find a place where I could just stay, and I didn't need to earn any money. So I found a place in Alcoy, which is the north of Alicante. So I went back to Malaga, got my backpack, went down, took a bus or something to Alicante, and then found this place with a family that just had a kid, and they needed somebody that could create a veggie garden and just to help them with the kitchen or something, So I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And it was in the mountains, so it was sort of a different landscape. I was there for 8 months. And then I was like, okay, I need to do something else. And then I had a Norwegian friend who was a speaker, and he lived in just a little bit west of there, so near the ocean, called Guatemala. And I asked him, do you need some help? And he was like, yes. And then I decided to go there. So I spent a whole year in Spain, working outside, being in the garden, doing psychedelics and whatnot. So psychedelic drugs and whatever. It's fun period of time.
Tell me a bit more about that. How was that?
So very interesting.
And what did you do?
Working there, you mean?
No, I'm talking about the psychedelics, because obviously sometimes it can give people some quite extraordinary experitions.
Yes,
I haven't tried it myself, but I've always been very fascinated about people that have tried it.
I'll definitely recommend it. So the first, what was the first thing I tried? Doesn't matter. But there was a guy called Jordy who were living off the land. He was an activist, and he hated anything in society, basically. And he grew everything himself, like veggies and whatnot. And he also grew, he made cheese, and he had goats and chickens and whatnot. So he lived by himself, or off the land. And he grew magic mushrooms also. And we, he had this water, what do you say, a dam, or like where you collect water in this, it's not a well, but it sort of came from a stream and sort of poured into a place, and that had been broken for a while. So over a couple of months, a bunch of people had come. He has a lot of friends and a lot of people, they have helped him build this thing so that he could collect water. And then as a celebration, or sort of, we had, a big party and food and whatnot, and magic mushrooms. And he had talked about this for a couple of weeks before. And I was really like, I had to be sure that I was going to do this. So I prepared mentally for quite a while. And because with psychedelics, it's very important that you are in an environment that you enjoy, or that you feel safe in, because it can go exactly the opposite way if you don't feel safe. So it was a beautiful group of people, and I obviously got connected to a lot of them because I was there for that long. So it's very the mushrooms are very it's dry, so it's it's sort of chewy, but it's definitely one of the most amazing experiences I've had. It was so calming, and that evening that we had this party, it was all full moon in the mountains, so it was very quiet, and that meant that when you began to take these, you want to connect to nature more. So naturally, you began to just wander around by yourself in the mountains, and just
walk 800 kilometers back to the Camino.
And you could find yourself just standing there and just gazing at the moon for no apparent reason other than you just enjoy the moment, and whatnot. So that was one of the experiences, but that was very beautiful, and it was just so calming. It was like the experience was that you almost felt like the energy was sort of looking for the shadows that you carried inside, and wanting to sort of either calm them down or sort of reflect them back on you. to sort of make yourself aware of something heavy inside of yourself, or if you're carrying some baggage or whatever, So it was a very, I don't know, soothing experience, very calming. It was very calm, but you felt very alert still. So it was not, you felt like something was going on, but you didn't feel like when you drink alcohol, you feel like you're completely like you can't handle yourself. So it's very, that's what I like about psychedelics is actually that you feel that you are present still. It doesn't feel like you're sort of, you go off, at least not in the sense that you don't know what's going on. The next.
Oh, sorry. No, you go.
No. So the next thing I tried was there was actually a shaman in the house just above us where I lived, and he obviously shaman. They if you're a shaman, you do ayahuasca. So ayahuasca is a very we talked about that when I was over, and ayahuasca is this very maybe you know the explanation better than I do, but it's a kind of a what do you call this?
It's a root, isn't cactus. It? It's like
it's a root and this long. What do you call the long? Thing that's hanging from trees. What's that?
Yeah.
The vine of the dead is what it's called.
The vine. That's right. The vine of the dead. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And apparently, it's only when you mix those two together that it produces something in the gut. If you don't do that and you don't just swallow that vine of the dead by itself, nothing is going to happen. So it's only if those two come together and you swallow it after they have obviously brewed it in a way. So I'm guessing he has brought it over from Brazil or Peru or something. And there was me and a girl that I knew at the time. She was also helping this guy out in Spain, and we went up there an evening, and we're told that we were not supposed to eat anything from lunchtime until 5 when we started. And then we had the ceremony. Usually an ayahuasca ceremony is like an entire week, and where you have every other day you have ayahuasca, and then every other of those days you have some kind of other drug. But so I haven't tried the full extent of it yet. So we had just one evening, but it's really amazing when you take that and you just realize after 30 minutes or an hour that you have no control whatsoever. That there is just like an energy inside of you that just is beginning to race, and it's beginning to it's obviously a spiritual cleansing. That's what it's called. It's basically to help you sort of clean out whatever it is that's inside of you. So, but it's very, very powerful. I mean, it's really insane how you really feel that you have no control, and there's just something that is completely in control of you, and all you can do is just sit there and experience it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like it almost sounds like really appealing to be honest.
Yeah.
I was about to say, but I suppose you need to have some sort of demons you need to let go of to begin with for that to really make sense. Or
I don't think it matters. I think it matters. It's because what it does is that it really shoots your brain or your sort of consciousness out into space, and you just experience things. I mean, if we can only see with our eyes and our senses, and that is like, what is that called, 3D? I mean, and if you go into like a microscope, there is so many things that are happening that you can't see. And imagine if you were in that world and you could go into with a microscope and go into even further into its nothingness, And I think that's what's happening when you take ayahuasca or something, is that you really get shut out into this space where you can't, where your sixth sense or your consciousness begins to experience something you can't with your senses. I think that's the best way I can describe it. And there's actually artists who are really good at painting what they're experiencing in these trips, which makes it look.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's so crazy. Yeah, it makes it a bit visual. Yeah, so you can find that online pretty easily, I think. But yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if anybody. It'll be interesting to see if anybody has made any music while being. I suppose it'd be super difficult to.
Actually, the ceremonies are full of music. it's a ceremony where the shamans are actually either drumming or singing or whatever. So music is actually part of ayahuasca ceremonies, as far as I know.
Is that to sort of get into like a rhythm or a pulse or something to sort of awake this sixth sense you're talking about, or is it just a part of an old ritual or something?
Yeah, it's definitely an old ritual. I mean, it's very in Peru. It's a part of their society. These ceremonies and South America, it's very normal. So I don't know. I haven't experienced everything about it. So yeah, that's for another experience at some point to do.
Sure. Awesome. Awesome.
So, but anyway, yeah, I started to work with this guy Steiner in Guatemala and worked with him for 4 or 5 months, helping him out with just some assistant stuff that he needed help with. What he was doing as a speaker and so on. And then I walked another Camino, which was in Portugal in July 2015, which is a very bad idea in terms of temperatures. So that was 40-degree heat every day. And the first 10 days, because it's a path it's a trek that's less walked, which makes the energy there very different. You can definitely feel that not as many people has walked there and is walking there, and there's less places to sleep. So that means that you can only. I mean, the first 10 days I walked 30 kilometers per day. So that was very difficult. Yeah, very, very hard.
What kind of shoes? Like you would have had to have not only good shoes, but also like a pretty good, level of fitness.
Yeah. I've always been in good shape. I mean, of course it's hard. I mean, and
how many hours is that? Like, how many hours is that?
I mean, if you walk in a decent tempo, you would probably walk 5 kilometers an hour. Maybe slightly higher some days.
That's at least 6 hours.
Yeah.
Then.
So, and then if you take breaks and you need something to eat, you obviously, it can take more. So, it's that was a different trip because across Spain, you obviously don't see the ocean before the very end if you continue to the ocean. And in Portugal, you could choose different ways. So you could go inland, or you could go near the coast. And after Porto, you can actually you can see the water. So, Porto is just halfway. And then, you have another 14 days or so from Porto to Santiago, and very different place, very different. A bit easier sometimes because they speak more English. It's funny because I stayed with a couple of days before in Lisbon, where you start the Camino, and the guy there, he continued to say, you need to eat this bacalhau. Bacalhau is the sort of the Portuguese dish, and or what do you call the national dish in Portugal, and so every day. Every time I was in a restaurant, I tried to get this bacalhau thing, which is kind of a codfish, I think, and with some vegetables or made in a special way. And I tried to send him pictures about, is this what you told me? And no, and he's always said no for some reason. So I had to go back.
But I'm like this is amazing. I mean, this is you. Am I right in saying this is about 5 or 6 years after you left Denmark initially? So you've been to Australia, you've been to Canada, you've been to Costa Rica, a couple of places in America, you've been Spain, Portugal, living in the mountains in Spain for, the good part of a year. Dude, that's crazy. And that's not even halfway.
Yeah.
Like we're 2020 now. So what comes after? Like, where did you go after there?
Yeah, so after Portugal, I actually was in a place where I had no idea where to go. I walked a lot of. I've always been sort of a loner, and I never had this big group of friends because I've always sort of liked my own company, I guess, or liked maybe deeper connections with people. So I've always spent time with maybe fewer people. So I don't know why I said that, but that's sort of been part of my life, I guess. But in Guatemala, I walked a lot and on the beach, and for some reason, New Zealand came to mind as a place I would like to see or visit. So, which was like kind of a crazy story because I had no money left really, and I had no intention of working more. And I came back, in August, I guess it was, and I sort of just wanted to get going again, and I really didn't want to work. So I was able to borrow a few bucks from a friend, and I had a bit of, maybe I worked a little bit, but it was very little. And then I decided to go to New Zealand, which was interesting because when I walked in Portugal, I met an immigration officer on the trek, which he became a friend. And of course, I knew how to do that because I knew how to do it from Australia and Canada, but he helped me out, so that was good. But I went down to see him in New Zealand. But what was funny is that I left Denmark with, I landed in New Zealand with like 1,000 Australian dollars or 1,200 maybe Australian dollars. I arrived in New Zealand and spent a few days in. My intention was, and I actually wrote you back then because I wanted to see if you had any connections in Queenstown and in New Zealand, just to see if there was any, because obviously networking is the way that it's easier to get around. So, and you knew this guy Leighton, so this Irish,
that's right.
Cool Irish guy. So my intention was, I got connected to him. So my intention was as quickly as possible to go down there because he already told me that he was managing this hostel. So obviously it's important to get somewhere to sleep. And I went down there, and within the first few days, I signed up at a couple of places where they hire people for work and so on. But within the next couple of weeks, I was broke. I had no money. So if he had not been the manager of that place, I don't know what I would have done. Because he said, you can pay later or pay after or whatever, So because I started to work, so I did get something in. But what is so funny about life? What is so funny about life? And you definitely taught me that in the beginning because you had the same experience of just going down there with nothing, and just trusting that things will work out. And I remember we had a conversation about that, which helped me a lot in the beginning, in terms of just having faith that things will work out. You can't expect things to work out. You just have to trust that it will. And that was my entire intention for New Zealand. And I really came down with nothing. I had no money. And within a month and a half, I was a gardener and a maintenance guy at this excessive, crazy resort, which is rated as the top 10 in the world, where famous actors and, filthy rich people go to have a break. They pay $1,000 a day to hike around New Zealand and have expensive treatments. So I got the job.
What is that
called? Aroha.
I'll try and look it up.
It's a Maui. I don't know what it's. Yeah, it's a Maui word. But yeah, Leighton, he was one of the adventure guides there. So he helped me get connected to this to the lady in charge of gardening, or the gardening team. So I had a trial working day there, and started to work at this place. They needed someone on the weekend that could help with watering and other kind of stuff. So that was an exceptional place. Have you been down to Glenorchy?
No, I've traveled a little bit in New Zealand, but that was only for 2 weeks, and okay. This is back in was that 2007, 2008 or something. So yeah, definitely many moons ago. But yeah, it looks amazing. I've just looked up on the website now. That looks like something quite unique for sure.
So Glenorchy.
And so how long were you there for?
So I was there from early part of November until the end of March. So that early part of late November 2015, and then left in March 2016. Yeah.
Right.
And I both worked there 5 days a week, and then I had this gig at a private place. This older couple who had a garden, or they just had moved there from the US, and so I helped them once a week as well. So it was a lot of work. I didn't really get to see New Zealand that much, but I saw a very beautiful place of New Zealand, which was Glenorchy, and that was one of the places where they filmed the Lord of the Rings. So if people know where the Isengard place, that was actually where I was close by. So, but yeah, just beautiful with the lakes and the mountains there, and could go to the sauna, when there was no retreat on, and yeah, it was perfect. And wow. It's funny what happens. It's really funny what happens when you just jump into, why would you go to another place with no money? Stupid.
Yeah. But, well, if you go to a place like that, why wouldn't you?
yeah. But I didn't know. So yeah. Yeah, that was awesome.
So where did you go after that? Because now obviously we're up to 2016.
Yes. So I obviously have a lot of fire in my ass, and that has kicked me in the butt too. But must have been January. I started to watch this movie called We Are Your Friends. It's this DJ movie, and for some reason I just got so hooked on that whole idea of DJing or music or whatever. So I watched that movie like almost every day for like a month. I think it was really insane. Yeah, because what I think I liked or loved about it was we haven't even got into that, but I wrote a book back in 2012 and published that in 2013, and I've always focused on or tried to get a book going with short stories too in Spain, and that didn't really work out, but because I gave up on it, honestly. But I've always focused on this idea of our journey and our story, and we all have something to share with our story, and so on. And what I found out in music, because I started to listen to the music, I started to listen to their lyrics, and I started to listen to the beats in a way that I haven't before. And I started to realize how you can create a story out of music. That's what you do. You create stories when you do
absolutely.
Music.
Yep.
But I realized that, and especially in that movie, that's what he did. The movie finishes by him making a track that concludes the entire story of his life, or that what you see in the movie. But and that just made me see that this is what music is. This is what music is about, or whatever. And it just got me so hooked that I started to study how you count beats, and started to just begin to listen to a lot of different electronic musicians and whatnot. So along with that inspiration, I felt like I had a void I still needed to fill, which was I needed an education to do something. Because I was still struggling with what the hell I was going to do in my life. Throughout all these travels, my constant struggle was, what am I going to do with my life? What am I here for?
Right.
And I didn't have anything in terms of education. I didn't have what other people had. And I sort of made myself believe that people who have an education seem more together. They seem more confident, or seem they have something they can do. They have a skill. And I made myself believe that was what I needed to do. So unfortunately, I visited the Chaos Pilot School. I don't know if you know about that. It's an entrepreneurial school in Aarhus in Denmark. But it's an international school that has people from all over the world. But they it's very broad education that teaches facilitation and leadership and how to start projects and businesses and whatnot. So I thought that would be something I should do. So I applied to a school. Instead of that school, I applied to a co-school in Switzerland, in Bern, because there was 2 different schools, and I thought, why not try a different country? So
why not?
I was like, yeah, so especially Switzerland with, so I applied to that school in Switzerland, where I submitted my project of Your Unique Journey as my submission, because you had to apply with a project, and so I applied.
And Your Unique Journey being your book or your project about
yeah. It's the title. It's the same title as my book. I haven't really gotten my project going, but the idea is to share people's stories in different book series and in different ways. So I submitted that, and a few days after, or what was that? Yeah. At the end of, actually, no, I was called in the airport when I left New Zealand. I think I landed in, no, what was that? No, they applied, they had to invite me. That's it. They had to invite me to Bern. So I had to apply, and then they would apply, or then they wanted to invite me to this weekend workshop or whatever it was. And that meant that I had to leave New Zealand. So I went all the way from New Zealand to go to this workshop for 2 days. And I went to Milan first in Italy, because, why not? Because then I could take the train from Milan to Bern. I don't know if that was the cheapest ticket or whatever, but that's how it ended up. So went to Milan, was there for a little week or so, and then up to Bern for that workshop. And then they called me as I was leaving Switzerland to go back to Denmark for the summer of 2016, and they invited me to be a part of the school and to start there in September.
So what exactly is this like? What are you studying to be at that school? Like, is that like what's the end goal?
Yeah, the end goal is to. Yeah, it's a good question, because the school it teaches you how to become a facilitator, so you can be a consultant, I guess. You can help groups, teams come together, work better together. You can learn how do you make a business? How do you create a project? How do you manage a project? How do you do many different things? So you learn to be an octopus, basically, in the sense of that you have a lot of skills. So if somebody gives you a task that is that's why it's called the chaos pilots, because it teaches you how to make order out of chaos, basically. So in a business setting or in a team setting or in anything. So but the school itself in Switzerland sucked, to be honest. It was not very good. Not because the intention was not there, but because the leadership and whatnot was they just didn't have it. They didn't have it in them to teach what they intended to. So it became a very weird time over 2 years, where I was in this if you think about Denmark as a conformed place, Switzerland is like a bit higher up,
Wow.
Yeah. And there's something. Yeah.
But I was about to say, dude, you've been living on a farm in Australia. You've been, living the dream on a retreat in New Zealand. You've been walking all over Europe for a couple of months and living in the mountains doing psychedelics and stuff, and going to Costa Rica and Canada and stuff. Of course, it's gotta suck being at a school for 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a polar opposite, man. Like,
yeah. And that's your point.
I mean, I understand. It's the fact that obviously, like, you're trying to look for something. You're trying to look for the end goal, and not knowing exactly what that is can be a bit overwhelming. I completely understand that, but but yeah, as I said, don't worry about everybody else's stories. Like, if you want to look at the short story from everybody else, like your story alone, I was like, we've been talking now for just over an hour, and and everything you've accomplished now, you've been telling me about in just over an hour, has taken you 6 years. Yeah. Like you need to write that down, because that is far more interesting than trying to become a chaos pilot. You could be an octopus, but do that with your own story, man.
Yeah, but it's actually really interesting because the last almost close to a year I've been in Denmark permanently, and I'm finally calming down to the sense where I'm looking back more than forward in the sense of traveling. So it seems like it's the end of me traveling by myself. It's the end of that sort of escape, sort of energy, going places to figure things out or whatever. And it's interesting because just the last week or so, I felt more enticed to actually update my book to now really write something that is way more in depth, because now I can, because I've been through this journey, and also because I have so much more to share. So I definitely have that on the radar to get going. So, but yeah, I'd love to get into the music part of this, because that was the good part about Switzerland.
Good.
I started to, because I needed to. It was so expensive there, and the school was private, so I had to pay for everything. So I had to find a way to earn some money, and I, of course, as naive as I am, I guess I was like, yeah, I can DJ, So the summer before, I had taken 20 hours of classes with this professional DJ in Odense, and gotten the hang of it. And I had a gig already before I went to Switzerland. So I sort of began to figure it out, I guess, slowly. And in Switzerland, I just started to just play at all the small school gigs and see if I could find a network where I could start playing. And then I found out that this clothing store called Olmo had DJs every Thursday evening for 3 hours, where they had a sale, or they had a sale. So they just wanted somebody in there to play just some beats, and I was so fortunate that some of the stuff I played, one of the owners liked. And that meant that I was invited to play for their 40th anniversary party in one of the most well-known pub or club in Bern, or the capital in Switzerland. So that was in, what was that? That was in 2017. Awesome. So I already been there. Yeah, so I already had been there a year, or close to a year, I guess. The whole idea was that, of course, clothing and that genre of clothing goes with, in history, how music is. The music and clothing goes together in terms of disco and the styles of clothing. So I got this gig, and I prepared for like 2 months almost, from September until November, where they had the gig, and played for 1,000 people for a bit more than 3 hours. So
that's awesome, man.
And just after a bit more than a year after I started DJing, so I think that was a pretty big accomplishment, and fun to see how that could work out. So
and you got a couple of other gigs after that as well, is that right?
I was actually invited back the year after, but that was a whole other story. That was a crazy trip. And so I went back from Switzerland after that year. I quit the school. It didn't work for me. That was actually only just 10 days after that gig, or 8 days or a week after I quit the school, because it just didn't work for me. So I didn't finish. And that meant I had some months where I needed to finish, or I was still in Switzerland. So I went back to Denmark for another, some months in 2018. That was when you guys were in Denmark. Yes, I was invited back the same November, or in November 2018. And I took a train all the way down there, and in total, I probably spent 6 hours on train stations during the night, because I just had I was not good at, I went down there to back and forth fast, because I was working, so I had to go down there for those 2 days. So I had to go back and forth fast, and that meant that I had to spend a lot of time on train stations and whatnot. And what really sucked was that there were no people showed up that night. So I played for about 10 people or something. So it was a lot of train riding. So
I was about to say, look, if you're an upcoming musician or DJ, I suppose that is unfortunately what happens from time to time. It just sucks that you had to sort of travel halfway through Europe to play for the bar staff or something.
Yeah, pretty much it. Yeah.
There's a fun story that I remember you talking about this at some stage. I suppose it's the polar opposite of going to a concert. It's didn't you go to some sort of like a silent event, what was that? You couldn't say anything, or I had to be completely quiet for a while or something, or 10
days.
10 days.
10 days. 10 days silent retreat. It's called Vipassana, and Vipassana means to observe reality as it is.
Without saying
that
anything.
Means you. And actually, the funny, interesting thing is that before you start, you're actually not allowed to wear any necklaces. You're not meant to have anything on you in terms of anything that can distract you, which means that you're not even allowed to look at other people. So
don't tell me you were naked though. Like surely you're allowed to wear clothes.
Yeah. So,
but no accessories.
But we cannot wear things that distract us.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
And we were split up by being men and women, so that obviously the men are not distracted. And then you meditate for 10 to 12 hours a day. Yeah. You're just really by yourself in some sense. The only one you're allowed to talk to is the assistant of the teacher or the teacher, because it is very intense. So sometimes I needed that. Sometimes you need to just talk to somebody to see what the heck is happening inside of you, because meditation, if anybody has meditated for a little while, it's very calming your mind down when we live in such a distracted world is probably the most difficult thing you can do. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, I think. It's definitely harder than walk the Camino.
And just let me think about it. So you got 10 days. You can't talk, but there's no sound. You can't listen to. There's no music. There is no background noise of anything, or how does this work?
Place, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was about to say. Tell me about the location.
So, the location is on a mountain hill between Switzerland and France. That was where I went. You can go all over the world. There's centers in every country, pretty much. But the day is that you wake up. You can wake up at the bell. The bell is the clock. So the bell rings at 4 a.m. Then you go down and you meditate for 2 hours before breakfast. And then there's breakfast for an hour or so, and then you meditate for another an hour and a half. And then there's a break, and then you meditate for another hour and a half, and then there's lunch, and that's how it goes. And then there's two hours. I think it's maybe three sessions with breaks in between until dinner, which is at 5 o'clock, which is a very early for most people to eat. But that's because fasting is part of the process. And what you learn there is to concentrate. That's what you learn. The first 3 days has to do with only focusing on your breath in 3 different places in your head or around your nose. And the reason for that, the first 3 days, is that you begin to learn how to concentrate on something very simple, because you can't find anything more simple than your breath. And the days after that, you begin to focus more on sensing the body in the meditation. So that's, in short, what you're doing all the time. But the difference is on the day 4 and forward, the 2 sessions in the afternoon, you are not allowed to move at all. That means that you cannot move anything. So that means you have to find a spot where you sit. I mean, you have to sit in the same place every time. But when you sit down, you have to really get comfortable in the sense, because you cannot move. That is the rule. Because the whole idea is to purify your mind, and the way you do that is to focus on something very simple. It was very difficult because I could not. You had to sit. I mean, you could. Most people would sit cross-legged, right? And I could not do that. I'm probably the same as you. I'm not very flexible at all. And I was sitting there once, and I was literally just jittering and jumping, and I was in agony. I had my eyes closed, but I could just tell the teacher was just looking right at me, and he was like, I could just tell he was there. And all of a sudden, he went around me, and he just came up, and I could feel that he was there, and then he just whispered into my ear, "Relax." And I was just sitting there like a spring, couldn't control myself at all, because I was just in agony of sitting down like that. But what was interesting about that, it was in the very end of that session, and at the very end, I began to feel that I could relax. And it can sound kind of crazy, but you can actually relax when you're in pain, and that's what you're practicing. So that means that the days after, when you get more and more used to this, you begin to experience your pain in a different way, because it obviously hurts to sit down, but the thing is that you begin to sense your body, because all our experiences are stored in our body, positive or negative, and it's mostly the negative things that we don't like to have. But because of fear of feeling something we don't like, we contract it, and it's stored in our body. So when that happens, and you then begin to practice sensing your body, you open those things up again. So that means that you're beginning to feel the things that you have experienced before that are negative. And for me, that was, neglect. It was bad relationships. It was all these negative things. And the challenge then is that when you begin to feel those things again, you have to observe it. You learn to observe it as it is, so they can be sort of let go of. And that's the entire practice that you learn.
That was be a crazy dialogue to sort of have in your mind when you actually can't talk, when you can't physically talk to someone about it. You just have to sort of manipulate that in your mind. After day 5, when we went to bed, I went to sleep, and I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt like I was attacked by knives. It was really crazy. It was so vivid that I felt like I was attacked by knives. It was it was really crazy. I really felt like I was attacked, and I didn't know what was going on, but every time I closed my eyes, it was like I was being stabbed like crazy, and I could not sleep. And I went down and knocked on the door to the assistant manager, and I asked, I need to talk to the teacher. I was like, what's going on here, and he calmed me down to understand that I was really working hard. And the reason why is from that relationship in 2011-12, I had suppressed myself so much that all that negative bullshit that I've had in me still was about to come out. So I was experiencing all that negative shit that I had stored in my body or suppressed. Right.
And that was what was beginning to come out. And that can only come out through the visually, or it is being felt again. So that was very vivid and very, so intense. Holy hell. So very giving, very giving.
So what happened after? What did the teacher do anything, or because obviously you can't, I could imagine that would be a very unpleasant feeling like someone is going to stab you.
He obviously calmed me down with just explaining that it was natural. It's natural when you work hard like that and you meditate that much, that things begin to come through you. And that's kind of all that I experienced. It's not a big deal in the sense of it's just part of the practice. It's part of what you go through when you are focusing on something so simple. All the distractions from before in your life and all the things that are subconsciously in your head begins to come through you. And it was actually first in that experience that I realized how much I've felt neglected by my grandmother on my dad's side. Because I've never felt I was an adult with my grandparents on my dad's side. I've never really felt that they saw me for who I was. But it was at that time during that meditation, those 10 days, that I realized, because I had my grandmother in a cloud sort of hovering over me in some sense, and I was wondering, why am I thinking about her all the time? But it was because I've experienced so much neglect from her that I've never really been seen by her. So it was during that time I began to realize what we began this whole talk about, how much I have felt confused about where I belonged in terms of and who I was and all that stuff. And if you can bring those things to the surface, that has been there throughout your life. I mean, it's been very important in terms of my understanding of where I come from too.
That must have been a pretty surreal and it's almost like a cleansing experience, I suppose. What kind of neglect was this?
I mean,
if it's something you want to elaborate
on in a way.
Right. Okay.
No. I'm totally okay with that. But they believe in God so absolutely that they want to save you from hell. So that means if you don't, they are so serious about that, and they see nothing else. They can't distinguish between who I am and what they believe. So if I don't, they want me to believe in the same thing, and there is nothing else that matters. My dad told me when my grandfather told him, if you bring home a girl, she just needs to be believing in God. That's all that matters.
Like a girl if you brought home a girlfriend, or if your dad brought home a girlfriend?
Yeah. So my grandfather told my dad that if he brought home a girl, all that matters from my grandfather was that she believed in God. And that's how they see us. That's how they see me. They don't see me as a human being. They see me as a believer and unbeliever. And that's why I've never really felt that they saw me for who I am, never seen me for what I've ever done. We've never talked about my traveling. They have never been interested in talking about anything that is related to anything I've done, anything.
Right.
So it's been very interesting to actually realize how much I have needed that love from them, but was never able to get it. So.
And that was something that was important to you to get that recognition from your grandparents, or?
I think it's just natural as a kid, isn't it? Because my on my mom's side, they always saw me for who I was. But the other part of that family, they just didn't see me. They just didn't see me, and it's been a bit tough to realize that, but also. Good in some ways, healing to realize that it's not me, kind of thing.
Are they still alive? Your grandparents?
My grandmother is. Yep.
Is it?
My two grandmothers are. Yep.
Is it something you guys have been talking about since, or is it still a bit awkward?
No, I don't talk to my grandmother anymore. On my dad's mom, I don't have a relationship with her. I mean, it's very difficult to have a relationship with somebody who doesn't see you for who you are and only believes in their own stuff. So, the relationship I have with her is non-existent. Where I just called my mom's mom yesterday or 2 days ago and talked to her for a bit, because it's natural to talk to her. So that's the difference. Yeah.
So would this have, would your grandmother sort of have anything to do with the initial reason why you left back in 2010, or was that for other reasons?
I think that it's not the defining reason, but the religious aspect, or that whole environment that I grew up in, because my mom and dad, they came from that background. They brought it onto us as kids, even though I've always questioned everything, questioned why we go to church, why do we go to work, why do we have money, why do we always do these things. I'm sort of an activist in the sense I want to understand what's going on. I don't just obey and just say, hey, just come and get me. I mean, I don't. Yeah. I question things, and I think I was just used to that environment, and I came into it as a kid. So what can you do? And I think that whole the confusion about where I belong throughout my childhood has first now I've started to realize that the confusion comes from there, or maybe the wanting to escape from things. And it's been a huge part of where I am right now, because I have finally sort of found or begin to experience what love is to another, to a woman, and to I've had 2 relationships, and this third one here is very different and very special. And I begin to realize how much I value that, and how much I've always fought in my life, meaning that I've always fought to be looked at as okay, or to be good enough, or to go here and be successful, or to accomplish things and whatnot. And I've had this weird fight inside of me all the time, wanting to accomplish and wanting to be something. And I think that's really a great conclusion to both my life as it is right now, but also maybe this conversation, is that that has been part of my discovery throughout these last 10 years, to really figure out that I have been fighting a fight that was just inside of me and has nothing to do with the things I embarked doing or whatever. It's really been to sort of figure out that I just need to calm down. But that sort of confusion, or that sort of storm, if you can say, kind of started very early on, not knowing where I belonged. But of course, it's taken me through a great deal of adventures that
no doubt.
Now and
yeah, no, look, dude, it's super. Look, it sounds like you are a lot more sort of content with the whole situation, and your past with your parents and grandparents. Man, look, I don't even know what to say. It's such a crazy and intense story. It must be so life defining as well to have done everything that you've done in the last 10 years, and you can totally relate to why you have. I wouldn't say been running, but why you've been searching. Because again, like all the stuff that you've done is more than most people will experience an entire life. And again, a lot of people probably don't have the same desire to pursue the same adventures or same questions that you've done. But hats off. It's super, super interesting, and it's super. Look, it's a very intriguing and very deep story that obviously has had some serious wounds. If you don't mind, could you continue the whole story about the silent retreat? So because after you came down, you had those knives or that vision of being attacked or being stabbed, and that was perfectly fine. And this was only halfway in, right? So this was day 5 out of 10. Is that right?
Yeah.
Far out.
So it goes on for 10 full days, but it seems that the last half of the day you can begin to talk again, just to get used to getting back out in civilization again. But I don't actually think, when I look back, I don't think I sat properly. I don't think I sat, like literally basically sat correctly down or in a comfortable place or way. But I think you get fast really, or you get better really fast when it comes to this, because you do it every day. I mean, it's really interesting how fast we can get better if we do something every day. And I think when you begin to realize that when you sit in pain, that you can endure the pain because you just observe it, it's quite a big accomplishment. And I've actually started to work with a guy now, Julian, who's helping me just become more present, become better at meditating, become more present with myself, my life, because it's very important for me right now to value, to commit to the valuable things I have in my life right now, because I have all the things that's going on right now. So the practice of I mean, it's hard to relate to really remember what happened in the exact days after, but what I remember is that it just becomes better and better, or easier to observe the pain, or observe the negativity, or observe the struggles you've had in your life, and so on. And but I think I saw the teacher another time on day 7. I think it was. Sometimes it's just good to get some feedback on what the heck is happening. Yeah. But I think the experience itself, it stayed with me for another 2 or 3 months. I mean, I could feel the difference in me. I could feel that it was with me still. And of course, the whole idea of the 10 days is that you continue the practice. So it's basically a practice to help you continue the practice, to really get a foundation down so you can continue. And I didn't really continue for more than a few weeks, I think, because the idea is you continue for an hour every morning, an hour every evening, and that actually what you need to do. But then I in 2018 I met this guy Julian who is now I've started to work with officially to really get better. So. But yeah, I would definitely recommend. It's a really difficult thing. You have to feel drawn to do that. I think you shouldn't just do it to do it. You need to feel a calling, like walking the Camino or something, to the kind of a thing. So
I was about to say, look, I don't even think I can shut up for an hour. Like it would be so daunting to think. It would be so daunting to think that you have to sit there in, like even the fact that you have to sit in the same position for what did you say, 2 hours? It's complete silence. If you're sitting out in nature in the mountainside somewhere in France or Switzerland, wherever you are, that is something else, man. And then you did it for 10 days, man. That is nuts. That is insane, man.
Yeah, and it's it's very difficult. And to relate that to, I think we can just wrap up the traveling is that. In what was that?
Well, this is still 2018. This is still 2018.
Yeah,
you got 2 years left.
I decided to go to India. I had a friend who had been at this Ayurveda clinic for a few weeks, and Ayurveda is this very ancient Indian treatment style with oils and massages and whatnot that basically helps you cleanse your body. So the body sort of becomes cleansed every day you clean it, and then the body sort of takes over again by itself, because the body is from nature, it knows what to do, So my idea was, or the journey that it became was that I went to India for a month. Then I went to New Zealand to travel with with a friend called Soren, who we're gonna write his biography. So we had to talk through his entire life. He's traveled way more than I have, by the way. He's also twice as old, but anyway. But he sailed all around the world to New Zealand, and he wanted to begin to write his book. So I wanted to help him out with that. And then after that, I would go to Perth, or to Australia, Melbourne first, and then Perth, to where I saw you guys. And that was in first part of 2019, and was kind of a transformational year in many ways. I thought things were
which one?
Slow down a bit inside. So
which one? There's so many.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing because we. Go ahead.
I was just a bit more curious to hear a bit more. So that Indian thing, what exactly was that about? Because again, like you've done the silent retreat, that was about sort of like your internal like cleansing of the mind, and you've done like a couple of psychedelic settings that was more about sort of getting the visions and connecting to your sixth sense. What was this like the whole cleansing of the body for the Indian retreat? What was so different on this particular retreat or this particular practice?
Yeah. So Ayurveda is it's an ancient treatment style which is basically to help the body connect with itself again. So the best way to illustrate that is that if you take an onion and you can you can peel one layer of the onion off, and then you can take another layer of the onion off, and then you take another layer of the onion off. And we as human beings, we store up a lot of shit from our outside world, from parents, from school, from the news, from, all these things. And we have all these layers of stuff that is not ours. So what Ayurveda helps you do, or helps your body do, is to take a big chunk of these layers off by consistently treating your body. So you basically, to just wrap that, or to give you an idea, I had 2 treatments a day for an hour and a half. So it's a big commitment. And I did that for a month. And you are completely naked.
A month.
You're completely naked, and you get very kind of a soft massage first, which is sort of an oil that sort of opens up the pores, I think it is, and then the natural medicine is very warm, and it's naturally made. It gets sort of kind of put on you like all over the body after you have had your massage, and then you get drops on your forehead, because our forehead and our third eye is basically connected to our gut and to our natural instincts, I guess. So it kind of helps reconnect the body to itself. And when you do that every single day, there's a bit more to it, but when that hour and a half sequence, you do that twice a day, the body already begins to process this, and it continues to process this. So what was really, really interesting was that I was in this clinic for 30 days. So that meant I didn't really go out much, because it's important that you are in this cocoon for that period of time, because you will get more and more sensitive to impressions from the outside world. So it's important that you don't distract yourself when you are in this process. But what is really interesting is that when you then leave the clinic and go out into the outside world, you begin to realize that all these layers that you've had, they have been sort of taken off, or a lot of them have. And then when you begin to communicate with people, either in the airport or friends or whatever, you begin to think that I used to react this way, but now I'm responding differently. And it's so weird and so different, because you remember, okay, I used to react this way, but I'm responding in a way that is way more calm. I think about it more. I'm more aware. And that is basically the proof that this works, that it's not just airy-fairy stuff. It's something they have done for thousands of years in India. It's tracked. I think the records show like more than 5,000 years or something that they have done this, and maybe way more, that they've done this in India. So, that was a big commitment, but also impressive. Something that really,
wow.
Yeah. So it really helped to give me a really good year. It was a very special year, also because of the traveling in New Zealand, and we had a marathon together, and
like that's anything compared to like a month of having like 60 2 treatments per day, so 60 treatments total, having silent retreat, having been done 30 days of walking in Spain and stuff. We did a marathon. A marathon is nothing to compare to any of that stuff. But yeah, you're right, we did run a marathon together. That was like a 5-hour experience. In my case, 4 hours for you, but that is nothing compared to the other stuff, man.
No, but yeah. So
another little ticket.
New Zealand. Yeah. And New Zealand there, and a month in Melbourne, and then a couple of months in Perth. And what's really crazy about that, I think the first 7 months of that year, I think you had the same goal where you wanted to drink no alcohol. So we didn't talk about that, I think, but we both did the same goal for some reason. And then I had an additional goal, which was I wanted to do something every day that could push my limits in terms of physical exercise. So I wanted to do every day. I wanted to do a push-up, like the same number of the day in the year. I wanted to do as many push-ups. so when I came to Perth, I was doing 100 plus push-ups a day, and we calculated, I think that because I quit in early July, and I think I had made like 22,000 push-ups or something, 23,000 push-ups in 7 months. That was pretty crazy.
Why not? I do remember that. Yeah, we had a little push-up charity thing going at some stage.
Yeah,
to raise some money.
Yeah.
Dude, man, look, your stories are crazy, man. I knew you had traveled a lot, but like the extent and the details of what you've explained over the last we've been talking nearly 2 hours now. Dude, it's so interesting, man. I'm really, really grateful for you sharing that. It's very, very interesting, man.
Yeah, it's fun, I think.
But just look, all right,
really
cool.
Nice,
you go. Sorry. Yeah, I know there's a little bit of sound delay from time to time. Sometimes, so if anybody's is questioning why we're sometimes talking and then delaying, it's because there is this millisecond delay. But you go first.
Okay. No, I was going to say, like I said earlier, that I'm at a point now where I lived in north of Copenhagen for about 9 months now, in a really nice kind of calm area, and that has sort of taken me that amount of time to actually calm the hell down again from many years of being crazy, and and it's actually made me get to a point where I'm starting to wanting to write. I feel like something can come out of me again. So I think also this conversation also makes me realize that now more than ever I can begin to really share more that both can be funny to or interesting to people, inspirational, but also something that I believe can help people. So yeah. Oh,
dude, I'm sure a lot of people would have some kind of internal struggle. I mean, I've had my own fair share during my 40 odd years now, and I'm sure there'd be a lot of other people out there who would have who has some sort of stuff that they've been dealing with, whether it's failed career, failed marriage, relationship, estranged parents, grandparents, like so many issues out there. But again, I suppose the main thing is how you deal with it, how you overcome it, and move on. Whether, like some people, as you said yourself, some people would walk halfway across Spain. Some people would sit for 10 days on a mountainside, or do the Vine of the Dead and experience crazy psychedelics and stuff. And look, and everybody deals with it in different ways. And it's been super interesting to hear how many different ways you've been trying to battle your demons or get your questions answered, I suppose. So look, where do you go from here? I mean, I suppose you have a whole different setting now, because you actually physically cannot go anywhere because of the whole COVID-19 and the whole virus stuff.
Yeah, true.
So where do you go from here? Like, we're talking like right today is the 21st of April. And I suppose the restrictions are slowly being opened up in Denmark as far as I've read. But what's the plans? Like, you still have another 8-9 months left of the year. What's left? What's on the cards?
I fall in love, man.
That's awesome.
My friend Julian, he said, when I told him I fell in love, he said another one bites the dust when I told him that. So,
dude, you've had 10 crazy years. Maybe it is time to take it easy for a while.
So I think. Yeah, so the intention and the purpose, goal, and whatnot is definitely to establish a relationship with Louisa, who I actually met in my 10th grade year at a boarding school. We have not talked since, and we met and we fell in love. So that's kind of funny. And she has a beautiful daughter, and it just all makes sense. And I'm in this place called Tour. How do you say that in English? Close to your good friend Lars, and it's a beautiful area. And I absolutely. What I love about it is just that it's quiet here. It
is, for sure. It definitely be a good space for you to sit down and write a biography. And dude, you need to write this down, man. You need to get a story out about what you've done the last 10 years. Talking about books, let's try and see if we can wrap this up, because we've been talking for nearly 2 hours, which is awesome, man. I really appreciate all the details and appreciate your time, taking your time out on this beautiful. From what I can see, it's a beautiful day in Denmark as well. But speaking about books, tell us a little bit about your book and if it's still available, because you released that, I think you mentioned earlier, that's back in 2012 and stuff. So can you still get the book, and what's the book about?
Yes. So I started to write the book in 2012, and I actually finished it in Mexico, in Tulum. I found this really beautiful retreat place, and I sat down and edited and wrote the rest of it. So the idea was simply, it's a very simple self-help book, and I was sort of in that environment still back then. So the book is about my story up until around that time. So I have shared a bit about my basketball life and my family situation and all those things, and a bit about my travels until about that time. So I called it Your Unique Journey because I like that title, and everything is about your and our unique journey. I think when we can share something, we can inspire others. So it's a very short book. It's only 100 pages, so it's very easy to read. It's on Amazon. So if you search Your Unique Journey and my full name, if that doesn't come up, you should see it. And you can either get it on Amazon UK in the US, or you can also just send me a message. If you want a signed copy, I can see if I can get it for you. I can definitely order some and mail them back out. Or if you just want the PDF and pay a few bucks for that, then I'll be happy. So I can also send you that. So that would
awesome. I've just while you've been talking here, I've just put up a little link here. So can you also just tell people, in case they want to follow some of your stuff, you've got a YouTube channel and bits and pieces. So can you just tell people where they can find a bit more about you if they want to follow you?
Yeah. I think on Facebook, it's my business page is not really relevant. So if you could just go to Facebook and just search Gideon's Journey, facebook.com/Gideon's Journey. That's the profile page. And then Instagram is Gideon Nielsen with an N, Gideon Nielsen and then an N. And YouTube, just search my name. I think it'll come up.
Yep.
Gideon Nielsen. Maybe Journey Navigator or something. It'll come up. So I probably need to post a bit more videos. I haven't posted much lately, but a lot of my traveling videos is on there. So
you can take a break, dude. I think you had a crazy decade, man. Crazy decade.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put the intro photo up again. So I've just put up the photo here from us having a beer in February 2010. Man, that's over 10 years ago. Wow.
Yeah. And it took a long to not drink again. We didn't drink last time, did we?
Same. I still haven't had a drink since end of October 2018. So, I'm on my, almost 1.5 now. Cool. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm not going to have a drink again someday, but yeah, exactly. Like you're just in a rhythm, you're in a routine of not drinking. Yeah. So it's maybe one day, you never know. I think again, with the whole drinking stuff, it's just the same as anything else. As long as you're in control, as long as you can, do it within your limits.
Yeah.
Gideon, dude, fuck, it's been absolutely unreal.
Awesome.
I said it's been awesome having you on.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that story, man. That is, that's an unbelievable story. Unbelievable decade you've had, man. And look, I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best for the rest of the year, and take care. And until our paths cross again, dude, man, be safe and enjoy tour. Thanks a lot, brother.
Thanks. Yeah, I will.
Cheers, man.
You too, man.
Thanks so much for tuning in or listening along to the show. If you like the show, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to my social channels. It doesn't cost you anything, but it greatly helps me to build my networks and my chances of getting sponsors to keep this show running. If you want to take it to the next level, please head over to patreon.com/StephenHelhammer and become a patron by joining the exclusive community there. You can start from as little as $3 per month. And for just a little extra, you get access to some fantastic features, outtakes, behind the scenes stuff, and much, much more. That's less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. And that way you can help me build better content. I can devote more time to find awesome guests and just generally just keep everything flowing. If you want to be on the show or subscribe to my mailing list, send an email to steven@helhammer.com, and that is HELhammer.com. That way I can start sending you exclusive invites, random stuff, and messages that, who knows, you might enjoy. So that's it. Have a rocking day ahead, guys, and I will see you on the live stream or in your headphones very soon. Take it easy.